Alright, what's up guys? PeterJaguars here again. Welcome to our 2022 NFL Playoff Bracket predictions. The road to Super Bowl 56 in Los Angeles is on. And off the backs of the biggest season ever, we have 14 teams dueling it out to hoist the Lombardi Trophy in February. This is our 8th season consecutively doing this series, the longest standing one on YouTube. As far as I know, still the only person to get a bracket entirely correct. We did it in 2017. That a more challenging task with the extra playoff teams thrown in as last year. And while we aren't necessarily getting a deeper voice by the year at this point, I'm getting bigger. Big boy status here, 6'4", 187, and we're going to be trying to go big brain status here with these picks. Let's get into it and pick our champion. Our journey starts in the top left corner, AFC wildcard matchup, Las Vegas traveling to Cincinnati to take on the AFC North champions. The Raiders are coming off such an emotional, grueling game against the Chargers, and I wonder on this short week whether it's going to be a little bit tough for them to come back from that primetime matchup. The Raiders team that's done a great job handling the turbulence of the coaching change and all throughout the season. I'm going to have to lean Cincinnati to take on this initial victory. Keep an eye on the weather forecast for Patriots-Bills because the two times these divisional foes faced off in the regular season looked wildly different based on the conditions. The first time in Orchard Park, Mac Jones only needs to attempt 3 passes as the Patriots pull off the win. The second time, Josh Allen throws it 47 times, Mac Jones a couple interceptions, and the Bills able to take down the Pats on the road. We are back in Buffalo here, and my inclination is that the Bills are going to figure things out offensively no matter what they need to do, and it's a Pats team that's reloaded well, but maybe just quite isn't able to get it done with a rookie quarterback right now. It's a nice swan song for Big Ben to eke his way into the playoffs one last time, and what Mike Tomlin does on a year-in, year-out basis in Pittsburgh is absolutely remarkable. That said, if there is one game in this entire bracket that I'm confident in, it's Kansas City taking this one at home against Pittsburgh. Roll on Chiefs into the divisional round. The Cardinals take on the Rams in the other of the first-round matchups featuring teams from the same division, and quite frankly, both have cooled off a little bit as the season has gone on. Matthew Stafford's play has become more erratic, and Arizona in particular, the loss of DeAndre Hopkins has squashed a little bit of what they've had on offense. I think ultimately makes things a little bit more narrow in terms of Arizona's path, and while Cliff Kingsbury came up with some great stuff to start the year, they seem to be getting figured out a little bit more and more by defenses right here. I don't have a strong lean in this one, but I am going to have to go with the Rams here, pay them a trip into the divisional round. Betting lines would tell you that San Francisco-Dallas is the closest of the wild card matchups, at least before COVID news and all destroys everything I picked right here. Currently, the Cowboys are favored by just 3 points. That makes sense. The Niners have a plethora of weapons, and really the only thing it feels like they're lacking is maybe a little bit of pass blocking help on the right side of their line and consistent quarterback play. However, if there's an opportunistic defense that can make use of both of those things and get guns blazing through the air, it is the Cowboys. I like this matchup for Dallas right here, and really either team that squeaks through could be going on a playoff run of their own. Just going to have to tip the toe and roll with the boys. Friendly reminder that the NFL playoff bracket is a little bit unique compared to some bracket setups where the worst remaining seed is who's going to be matched up with the team that has a bye. So if I take the Eagles right here, they would travel to Green Bay. If I roll with the Bucks, things stay as aligned, and it'd be Cowboys-Bucks and Rams-Packers as your 2 NFC games. That does make me a little bit more inclined to go chalky with the early rounds because it does flip everything on its head if you don't get some of those upsets right. And in this case, the Eagles and Bucks did play a close game earlier in the year. It was 28-22, and the Bucks ran 26 more plays, but somehow things were a little bit frisky late. That said, we can boil this one down in a lot of different ways. Philadelphia is an ascending team with a lot of great draft capital. They're heading in a good direction. Tom Brady's probably somewhere near the end of his career, but he's still good enough to get it done and advance on as the 2 seed. Divisional round, here we go, and I promise there will be some upsets by seed by the time we're done with this one. Now, Cincinnati, Tennessee. It's a Titans team that is standing to benefit as much as anyone from getting a bye. Hopefully get Derrick Henry back healthy, the wide receivers too. Julio Jones makes his first trip to the end zone in a Titans uniform in Week 18. A.J. Brown on and off the field. When you've got all of these dogs rolling, it's certainly an offense that nobody is trying to contain on a one-on-one basis. Cincinnati here with Burrows making their first trip into the playoffs, just getting a sense of the foray and all. Look, I don't love all the in-game coaching coaching decisions that Mike Vrabel does. There's no doubt that he gets his guys geared up to play football on a weekly basis. I think they'll be well rested, well prepared, and well ready to move on to the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs may have taken down the Bills in the playoffs last season, but Buffalo certainly got revenge with an 18-point victory at Arrowhead back in October. And for my liking, these are the top two teams in the AFC, so brilliant football if we are able to see Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes go head-to-head. One thing that will be different from earlier in the season, though, is the absence of Tre'Davious White. When you lose an alpha corner, that's going to change everything from your number one matchups all the way down the line on the perimeter. If the Chiefs have their guys healthy, which I know is a little bit of a conditional statement right now, but making that assumption, they'll be able to get some plus matchups that they like. And if this heads to shootout mode, I think that the Chiefs had an 8-game winning streak for a reason. We're able to keep that ship righted to return and take on Tennessee. Rams-Packers is another matchup that's a repeat of the 2021 playoffs in addition to this regular season, with the difference being that Green Bay has won both of the recent faceoffs between these two teams. And while we're talking about wide receivers and cornerbacks, Cooper Kupp versus Jair Alexander, Devontae Adams and Jalen Ramsey, now that's must-see football on both ends, even if these aren't necessarily my favorite teams in the world. And the Packers were able to play their guys a little bit in Week 18, then rest them. Sometimes people worry about rest. I think getting those bruises and all healed up, in addition to having the extra game planning time, is a huge advantage. Only one team gets the bye right now. On this side, Green Bay is the one that's profiting from it. I think Stafford makes an error or two that leaves you scratching your head, even with the investment they've made in him. The Rams come up short in this playoff bout as Green Bay pushes along. Do you remember what the game was that kicked off the NFL season all the way back on September 9th? Well, this should remind you, Cowboys and Bucks at Raymond James Stadium. And if not for a couple missed kicks from Greg Zuerlein, Cowboys very well could have been walking out with a victory right there. Dak Prescott's first game back off injury. He or Burrow deserves comeback player of the year, and I feel comfortable handing out defensive rookie of the year to Micah Parsons as well. Very much a deserved award winner. One of the best defensive players across the league throughout these past 17 games. Now, what the Bucks are missing from back in September is a couple of those key wide receivers. 226 yards and 2 touchdowns went the way of Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin. When you narrow this target tree a little bit, it's going to get a bit trickier. I know Dallas is down Michael Gallup also, but I'm inclined to say that they've got a plus matchup on the defensive end, even for everything that the Bucks still have going. If they are able to quiet this offense a little bit, we've seen it happen to Tampa Bay, getting blanked by the Saints near the end of the year. I think that they're going to be able to come out with the upset victory here and put their berth forward for another week. And then there were 4. But one thing I'm noticing on the AFC side is that of all the teams, the Colts are nowhere to be found. I thought they had a walk into the playoffs. Oh, and the Jags took them down in Week 18. What a shame. I'm sorry, Indianapolis fans. I had to grunt my way through a 3-win Jag season and a 3-win Stanford Cardinal football year where I was calling all the games for radio as well. So need to crack a joke here and there. Still wish Andrew Luck was out there suiting up for the horseshoe. And look, as we roll into this Titans-Chiefs matchup, I just think of all the chaos. We need to remember how darn good Mahomes has been. In 3 years as a full-time starter, the Chiefs made the AFC Championship game, won the Super Bowl, and then lost the Super Bowl to Tampa Bay last year. Reed and Mahomes are incredible together. It shouldn't be any surprise that with those bumps and all, they were able to sort things out. Felt like they had a lot of bad turnover luck early on in the season. Made some changes on the backside. Steve Spagnuolo's defensive scheme seemed to always get better with innovative blitzes and, creations and whatnot as the year goes on. And Tennessee being the 1 seed, I think people will be leaning KC even to take them down on the road. Now, there's a formula for the Titans where if they can get the ball rolling and start to snowball, it can be really tough to make things back. And we saw that happen when the Chiefs got romped by them earlier in the year. However, Andy Reid is saving his best stuff for the games that count. We're in that range right here. When it comes down to it, the quarterback discrepancy is something that I'm always going to be thinking a little bit about, and it has to give the edge to KC to earn their 3rd consecutive trip to the Super Bowl. One of the narratives around Packers-Cowboys would no doubt be Mike McCarthy taking on his former team, where he was at the helm back in 2017 as the 4-seed Packers went into AT&T Stadium and upset the 13-3 Cowboys as Dak Prescott was just getting his young career started. Now, can Dallas do the reverse and go to the frozen tundra? Well, that's a little bit of a more challenging road trip, all things considered, but they've got a great coaching staff to boot. Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn are both coordinators who, if they choose to, deserve to get head coaching opportunities at some point. And that's going to be a nice contrast against Matt LaFleur being one of the best head coaches and a solid staff that he's put together in Green Bay. The Packers have alphas all the way down the line at their core positions. David Bakhtiari coming back being another one of those guys. And the question would really be, can the Cowboys put together a good, solid 60 minutes of football for all the pressure that there is when this is a team that's putting things together? And my inclination, and you might be surprised by this, is yes. I've watched a lot of Cowboys football from Hard Knocks through the season because it feels like they're always on prime time, and the Cowboys have something to them. It might not be this year, but I think there's a chance it is this year, and they are going to be the team that I'm going through another upset on the road, a star-studded trip, and it'll be the Cowboys and the Chiefs heading to SoFi in February. So here we are, Super Bowl 56, Kansas City and Dallas. And in a year where there hasn't been any singular dominant team and more week-to-week variability than I've seen in my entire life following football, part of me just wants to flip a coin and let that decide my Super Bowl champion. But that wouldn't be doing justice to you all, and I think there is a little bit more to consider in this matchup beyond Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott. Couple guys on Kansas City's defense that are worth mentioning to me. Melvin Ingram, who's been as good as any player that switched teams during the year. Just a really nice addition to have an extra guy in that front seven and rotate a little bit more. Chris Jones, who picked up 3.5 sacks when these teams played earlier in the year. Sometimes when the margins are tight, it's only one or two thin backbreaking plays or oblong ball bouncing in one direction that makes the difference. And, well, the Cowboys have a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball, too. I think we are forgetting a little bit about what the Chiefs have on their front. And there's no doubt that experience plays a role also. I just mentioned Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's accolades of recent. We've got a whole host of players where this stage is certainly not going to be too big for them. The Chiefs return to the Super Bowl, and this time without an entirely depleted offensive line, going in a fierce duel with the Cowboys, and ultimately, I'm going to go with KC. Mahomes picks up Super Bowl number 2, Super Bowl MVP number 2, and adds on to his stunning career with a great win in Super Bowl 56. That'll be it for full playoff bracket predictions, though. Chiefs over Cowboys, Mahomes your Super Bowl MVP. And while I don't have Aaron Rodgers immunized against the Cowboys defense here, keep an eye on the Packers and Bills as a couple other teams that could be competing for a Lombardi in the end. Spike a like if you enjoyed this video. Make sure to share it with one friend, family member, fan, whoever it is, to get as much support as possible for the annual upload. You can subscribe to be back here as always in 2023, and let me know in the comments section what you have for your Super Bowl matchup as well as the eventual champion. That'll be it for this year. Thank you as always, and I'm out. Peace.